We are live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Funny Shrink podcast. I'm Mike Cateo, and this is our co host, Frank King. Say hi,
that that's a cat's tail, as you might have guessed. That's
Frank.
she's getting in position to sit in my lap during the podcast.
uh, I love that you're a cat. I was gonna say something wrong, but I
Yeah,
when
careful.
yep, yep. Ah, you can't keep the comic in me down. I guess that's what I'm
No,
saying.
and straight to the DICK joke always.
Always. It was gonna be a PUSSY joke,
I had a
actually.
feeling. Yeah.
I don't know if our listeners can spell or not, but there you go. So we have a great guest today, Anthony Metten. You've met him before, right, Frank?
He's one of my TEDx and speaker marketing coaching clients.
Sweet. Tell us a little bit about him.
Well, he contacted me through another friend, another NSA friend, JC Imolkowski, and he always wanted to do a TEDx talk. And I believe as part of a rebranding, he's a coach and trainer, and he would like to. Well, it's a topic I'd never even heard the word. I won't spoil the surprise. I'll have him give you the word that essentially means midlife crisis, but it's far more detailed than that. So anyway, I thought the topic was worthy of a TEDx. I think it's something people need to hear. I kept bumping into people after I talked to Anthony the first time who were in a similar position to where he was when he made a big change, and they'll tell us all about it. So yeah, I think it's more common. What he's talking about is more common than you would think. So
Awesome. I can't wait to hear more from him. Let's welcome Anthony Metten, everybody. Woo-hoo.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Hey, Anthony, how are you, sir?
I'm right here. There you go. There you go.
they are.
How you guys doing this morning?
Well, Oregon's getting ready to shut down for another 2 weeks starting Wednesday. My wife works in a grocery store. She said the panic buying began on Friday as soon as the governor announced it's coming Wednesday. Restaurants are going to be doing takeout only. Gyms are going to be closed and several other items. So I ran right out yesterday and bought 40 rolls of toilet paper, as you would.
My wife said to me yesterday, actually, should we start buying in bulk again? I'm like, I love buying in bulk. Yes. So it's really an addiction at this point, guys.
Yes. Stock up while you still can.
Yeah, get to it, as we say, before the hoarders get there. Matter of fact, I went this morning at 7 o'clock to our grocery store to buy the rest of our weekly staples just to get ahead of the crowd, and I did get ahead. And I was amazed they still had toilet paper and paper towels on the shelf, although they're limiting families, 2 per family at this point. So
yeah. Well, I was at Costco yesterday, and all the water supply and the paper products was getting really low.
yeah, Costco here, you couldn't get in. The line was out the door to get into the store to buy. Yeah, so that's why I went earlier this morning to the grocery store. Yeah, it's I don't know.
I have a BJ's membership, and they delivered yesterday. So
Oh, sweet.
BJ's membership? They have memberships?
I have a membership for BJ's. It's the best thing you could. My mind keeps on going dirty, you guys.
Yeah. But that's a restaurant, right?
No, BJ's is like a Costco.
Okay.
So Costco, I actually like better, but they're not as close to us as the BJ's is. So, and who doesn't love a good BJ? You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially if it comes to my front door. That's great.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
Yes.
I shudder to think what membership costs.
Oh, man, the dirty jokes just popping in my head as we, yeah. The price is hard to swallow, but
Oh, Jesus.
I didn't put the adult content warning.
oh
on
no!
I forgot. So After I pressed broadcast, I'm like, oh shit. So, uh,
What are you gonna
tell
do?
I don't know, but that cat is moving across your screen like
Yeah,
nobody's business.
that's. Oh, I got 11 of them, so there's a good chance there'll be one in the frame.
Do you have 11 cats? Jesus Christ.
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
And
Why aren't you on TikTok?
yeah, well, I had to drive back into the wildfires to to evacuate them all because the fire was a mile and a quarter away and the cats were in the house and I wasn't going to leave them behind. So
Yeah.
You're an animal lover.
You're a good man, Frank.
thank you.
Mike, I'm sure you are too. I just don't know you as well.
I think, don't worry. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Anthony.
Well, let's see. For the sake of the podcast, let's see. Executive coach, speaker, mediator, my hopefully future TED talker. Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome.
And my background is in retail banking, where I was an executive for about 20 years and walked away in June of 2007 and started down this new venture of being a coach and speaker. And I think it really came from my experience in corporate, and I just saw so many things I didn't feel was right. Saw people behaving in ways that were socially unacceptable, although they didn't realize it because it was acceptable in corporate. And just decided to go off and try to make a difference in the world. That's my main mission right now. I want to be healthy, and I want the people around me to be healthy. I want to explore and live life to its fullest. I want to go to my casket bumped up, bruised, broken, with a big old smile on my face because I lived a wild ride, and that's just the way I live my life.
There you go. So you, it seems like I looked at your website. It seems like you try to put the compassion back into business.
Yeah, there really isn't a person that I've connected with as a coach, no matter what their position and no matter how, the front and how people knew them in the corporate world, that when we got behind closed doors, some of the layers didn't come off, and there was really a good person inside there. And I think we all bend a little to the social and the social pressures we have, especially on the job. And this is where the whole idea of individuation. I know when I was going through my master's in counseling psychology with an emphasis on career development, that individuation, that term really kind of stuck out for me. It's about, individuation is about, kind of shedding those familial and social expectations and becoming your own person. I think if we had more of that in the corporate world, where people kind of stood up for not only what they truly believed in, but what they felt was right, I think we would have a better environment and society out there, especially in business.
Is that the word Frank didn't know?
That's sort of. I mean, I knew it in other forms. I just didn't realize that sort of midlife crisis. You realize you're not really living the life you should be living. You should be living another one. I didn't know it had a name. I didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah, again, when I was going through my degree program, the word individuation stuck out for me because it clearly was shining a light or a magnifying glass on something that I needed to learn. But individuation is a process we all go through probably several times in our life. It's not a one and done. I think there's a few of us who are fortunate enough to maybe start it in our 20s and 30s, but most of us don't go through it till our 40s and 50s. Which, as Frank suggested, that's probably where the term midlife crisis came from. It oftentimes leads to a disruption in your life because you question relationships, you question what you're doing, you question who you're hanging out with, and some of those things change. And personally, I started going through it probably about the age of 45. It cost me a 19-year marriage. It cost me the relationship with my mother and sister. But I'm probably the happiest I've ever been in my life because I'm finally who I am, and I don't feel like I need to hide that anymore and bow to the pressures of others and what they expect of me. So yeah, it's a growth process, but it's not easy.
Yeah. And like I remember the term from like it being one of the childhood development strategies in Aller's individuation process. Like when the child goes from meeting the mother all the time to finally branching out. And what I'm saying is that this continues throughout your life.
It does, but I think we all get stuck to a certain point. I have a hypothesis that I haven't really researched as of yet, but I think the healthier your childhood, the earlier you go through at least some of the first stages of individuation, right? Because most of us didn't grow up in a truly healthy family situation. And so, to become our own person, to be who we wanted to be, to explore and try to figure it out wasn't exactly supported and encouraged. And so most of us kind of, walked this fine line or this pathway that, our families wanted to, and, or we had the friends connected with it and so on, which is probably why most of us don't go through it to until our older ages. Yeah, I guess, 40s and 50s is older these days. So.
You talked about like corporate and being individuals in corporate. I'm a social worker. That's my trade. Every time I had a social work job in corporate, I ended up having a very difficult time because I'm much more a think outside the box type person and don't conform really well. Is that what you see with like people in corporations? They conform really well and become this big doer of normalcy that is in corporations?
Yeah, and here's the real simple reason why. We're taught from a young age that the goal in life is to work our way up the corporate ladder, make more money, and have more responsibility and power. Right. So if you're working for a corporation and that's what you want, again, that's what most of us have been trained to see as the end goal. You toe their line, no matter how bad a line it is, and people don't speak up when they see things that aren't right. People aren't willing to take a stand to what they feel is is the right way to go about things. Because if we do, we're outliers, and then we're passed up for the promotions and the raises.
Yeah, that's why I never get those.
Yeah, I worked in radio for a while back in 2012 or 13. A friend of mine was the general manager. The company had 37 radio stations. There were 6 or 7 in Raleigh, which is my hometown. So I went back and I worked in, helped him open a comedy club. And I would attend all the sales meetings. And here's a number one radio station in the town was a country station, WQDR, number one morning show. And I said to them, okay, listen, I missed the show this morning. I really wanted to see your guest. Where can I find the stream, the stream of the show? Oh, we don't record the show. We don't stream. You have the number one morning radio show and you're not live streaming it. So anyway, because the guy who owned the station was in his late 70s, so he didn't quite understand the internet. So it seemed like every meeting when they were looking for suggestions, I would recommend, some kind of video because you have 7 stations, you got all this, So my final meeting, at the end of the meeting, they always ask, what'd you learn this week? And I've been put down so many times for bringing up video. People would say when I raise my hand, don't tell me, let me guess, video. They make fun of me. So on that last meeting, they said, what'd you learn this week, Frank? I learned that if anybody wants an idea from me, they're going to have to beat it out of me. Because I just got tired of, stepping outside the box and getting hammered.
Yeah. And again, in my experience in corporate, just the stuff that I saw and went along with. I went along with it, right? Because I wanted to be promoted and so on. I just, the good news, or what I hope is the upside with this COVID thing, is we're going to start changing some of that. It's certainly not the end all be all answer, but I hopefully it'll be a catalyst for some of the change, where people, start taking a stand, letting their opinion be known. Because we have so much more flexibility right now with people working from home and being able to live in different areas and not be tied to an office. Whether that's going to continue or not, who knows? But my hope is, again, COVID is going to be a catalyst for some of the change where people start, branching off and really becoming their own person and exploring what makes them happy, and where their natural talents and gifts lie. As you have a focus on comedy on this show, right? Think about it, how much happier and humorous people would be when they're really just kind of living the life they're supposed to be living, right? That's a whole different ball of wax.
Well, and tell us the name of your TEDx talk.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, Frank. The TEDx talk is individuation. The who you are isn't necessarily who you are, right? Because again, who we are from birth isn't necessarily who we are supposed to be as adults. Again, at birth, you're brought into this family, whether you're adopted or naturally born into the family. And you have to be like them in order to survive, even if you're completely different, right? So you shed maybe some of your natural instincts or tendencies just to be able to survive and fit into this family. We have to do that. But when we get older and kind of move out on our own or whatnot, then it's our opportunity to branch out and shed some of that and really explore and become our own person. And, looking back on it, when I started discovering, my need and my pathway through individuation, I look back on my sister, who had a much better relationship with my mother. And my sister individuated at a much younger age. And my mother hated it. The way she wore her hair, the lifestyle decisions she was making, the husband she chose, right? All these bad things. And they weren't bad. She was happy. She was becoming her own person. But it severed the relationship with my mother for quite a while, because my mother just didn't want to accept it because that's not her values. And, there you have it. And I'm sure many people listening to this podcast will be able to relate to that and go, yep, I get that. That's what I went through. And by the way, thanks to Frank will give you the credit. I think the diagnosis I would give to my childhood and upbringing is parental
attention.
Yes, thank you, Frank. Parental attention deficit disorder. Right, just not having the attention from my parents that I personally needed to grow up and blossom into the person I was capable of being, and I had to find that as an adult, right? But again, I think unfortunately, most of us probably went through that at some degree.
I think that's a terrific mental diagnosis.
Isn't it a great one, Frank?
Thank you very much. We'll be in the DSM next time.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, Mike, let me ask you this, because I'm sure comics go through this individuation process. The ones who actually make the leap and decide to do it full time. I remember vividly when I made that decision, when I realized that I was selling insurance and married to a woman I didn't need to be married to, although she's a wonderful woman. I made the decision. I'm in the wrong place with the wrong person doing the wrong thing. So, but I'm guessing comics, like I said, that decide they want to do it full time, go through that with pushback from family, friends, spouses. Yeah. I don't remember your story, Mike, when you made the jump to.
So what happened was I did it on and off for years. And then in 2002, I was working in Bellevue Hospital, which is a hospital known for crazy people in New York. So I fit right in. I was working at Bellevue, and I ended up getting diagnosed with HIV. And it was through that I started to reanalyze my life, and I said, you know what, stand up really is the only thing that makes me happy. And I quit my job, I moved back in with my parents, and I did stand up for every day, and I started making it. I started to become a professional, and then when I knew I had what it takes was my parents came to a show I was doing, and after the show, my father said, "You and Jim Gaffigan were the two funniest people on the show, but
Very cool.
yeah, but don't quit your day job." And I was like, no, I'm quitting my day job. And then I did, and I ended up going on the road, and that was that.
Yeah, and I certainly don't want to paint, our childhood upbringings and everything as a complete downer, because the reality is, as a comedian, that's probably where some of your best material comes from, right?
Right.
Just that experience of going through the struggle and the what the heck was that all about, right? I had somebody say to me once that my mother wasn't the mother. I wanted, but she was the mother I needed, because quite frankly, her being the mother that she was allowed me to develop the kind of the skills that I have to connect with people and to have a voice and to be able to pick up on cues and whatnot. So, and I couldn't do what I do today without having the corporate experience that I have. Right. So, as in life, it's complicated. But this is your one shot. Right. But, it's the blending of it all that makes our life so much richer, which is probably why for a lot of us, we don't go through that individuation process until the 40s and 50s.
Right. And it's all going back and forth. Like I'm sure you, like, let me ask you, Anthony, do you think it's you move forward and you're an individual, you're individuating, and then you're like, no, too much, I'm gonna pull back?
Sure. Yeah, and again, it's not a one and done, right? You have to, you go through it several times. You're challenged in several different ways throughout your life. So what I haven't really figured out for myself as of yet is what's the end goal? What is the perfect? Okay, I've evolved as much as I need to, which the reality is that probably is no such thing. But you go through it at several different points. And for me right now, I think, the happier I am, not only with myself, but my life, even if, nobody was around me per se in a close proximity, would I be happy just being with me? Which I think I'm so much closer to than I was when, I was younger, and, probably not perfect at that point, but that to me is kind of an end goal, just where, I'm just really happy with me, no matter who else is around me, no matter what else is going on. So yeah, but yeah, many times throughout your life.
That is amazing. We have a couple of comments in the stream, so
Cool.
let me read some of them. Bidet sales are through the roof. I don't know what that means. Barry Friedman doesn't want his ass. So, bidet sales are through the roof. Hashtag never go back.
No idea. I'll take non sequiturs for 1,000, Alex.
And then we have a very serious message from our friend John Mew, who wrote, "I want to let you know that I took an overdose last Saturday night. Alcohol medication mix. I'm so sorry I did it. My wife and kids were distraught, but totally behind me. When I'm ready, I will talk about it to help suicide awareness."
Oh, John. Oh, bless your heart. He's one of the authors in the book number 3, Guts, Grit, and the Grind, Mike.
Yeah.
Men's mental health book. Yeah, he's got quite the story. Anthony, he was on one of those ships in the Falklands during the Falklands War, and it was hit and sank in 20 minutes, and he lived with some PTSD thanks to that episode.
Yeah, Frank. Since Frank, when we first started talking, I mentioned that I have dealt with depression and suicidal ideation and so on, When I hear stories like that, what really strikes me is, where you need to get to be ready to pull that trigger. And that's just such a heartbreaking, it's a heartbreaking situation that I think that if you're not one of those people who've experienced in the past, you really don't understand what that's like.
Oh. Well, John, I'm glad you're still here.
Yeah.
Thank you, John, for sharing that. And the final comment we have is from Noah J. Whitaker. Adverse child experiences, ACE, is a pretty big concept in a similar area to what you're mentioning, Anthony.
Yeah.
I don't know much about it, I say I'm a professional therapist, and then people are like, "Have you heard of this?" I'm like, "No,
Yeah. Yeah, adverse childhood experiences. I think it's about trauma, and then they give you a score. You have, if this has happened, you get a point. If that's happened, you get a point. And if the number of points are over, whatever, 6 or 7, then.
That is a test you don't want to get 100 at, I'm assuming.
No.
Yeah. But again, I think if you're able to do a survey about how many people grew up in just a great childhood experience, probably not the majority of us by a long shot. And Frank.
Yes, and came up with a concept, Mike. It occurred to me, I was talking to a life coach who'd been doing it for 20, 25 years. And the concept of, I'm an afterlife coach. The hard part is collections. And then that led me to next life coach. And I said to Anthony, people say, Anthony, in my next life, I'm going to be a yoga instructor. I think you should be the next life coach, because what you're doing is you're saying, this is your life. Now we got to ask ourselves, is this the life? Is this who you are, really who you are? And should you be doing something else? And then if you should, then, well, how do you make that transition? That's why you need a next life coach. How do you make the transition from this life to the one you should be leading, the next life? And then, so anyway, that's I came up with it. Anthony liked it. The branding guy really liked it. So.
Yeah, no, that was brilliant, Frank. And again, running into you and coming up with some of these one-liners that you've just spoon-fed me have been career enhancing for what I'm doing. So thank you. But yeah, an executive coach, or as an executive coach, somebody in the business world brings me in to, work on, hey, we need to increase sales, right? And that might be true, but what they think is holding them back really has nothing to do with what they think it does. What's holding them back is other things that they haven't yet dealt with. And a lot of clients I work with, kind of start having that discovery about, what, maybe I'm in the wrong industry. Maybe I'm not in the right job. Maybe I'm going about it the wrong way. And that whole idea of the next life, right? What do I want to do next? If I could take an eraser and, an Etch-a-Sketch and shake it clean, what would I draw now? Brilliant way of looking at it, because that's really what the process almost seems like, is like step into your next life.
Well, and Anthony, you got a story. You working with the bank you're working at, and you couldn't seem to get the promotion that you wanted, so you hired a coach to take you to the next level. Wasn't that coach the one that said, maybe the reason you can't get there is because you don't belong there?
Yeah, actually, it had nothing to do with job. What we figured out real quick was it had nothing to do with job performance or abilities. It had to do that, I still had some work to do on myself. And you know what? Maybe this isn't where I really belong, because he said right from the beginning, it's like, what? You need to be in an industry and with a job where you're actually helping people, And hey, running my team and taking care of my customers was helping it, but it was only scratching the surface. It wasn't going deep enough. And here was a really interesting thing. I finally did get that promotion. And, it was everything, the exact promotion I wanted. It was the territory, just perfect. And I literally went from that announcement meeting to my car because I had to drive back to my office. And I called my coach. And I literally broke down into tears uncontrollable. And I had no idea what the hell. I just got the promotion of a lifetime, something I've been working for 5 years, and was convinced that my life would be so much better now. And it completely destroyed me. And boy, I didn't understand it then, but that was my first sign that, something's not right. Something's got to change. Like to the old saying, here's your sign. Right, you're on the wrong path.
Bill Engvall, open for him.
So how long did you last in that new promotion?
6 weeks. 6 weeks, and not only did I quit the promotion, I quit the bank, and I quit it for a reason, because one of my employees, my previous employees, because I just got promoted out. One of my previous employees was terminated for something that was a bank procedure and policy breakdown. Had nothing to do with her. She was as loyal and as true as any company would want, and she was terminated. And although the job was crushing me, so there was really kind of a dual mode, I quit the job with the stance that I'm not going to take the promotion I had worked so long and hard for at the cost of any of my employees. Because if I was there and I was paying attention to my team back then, rather than getting promoted, that never would have happened. And the resignation was accepted, but then the head of HR got in touch with my boss and said, I understand, I understand what happened, but isn't that the kind of employee we actually want working here? The one that would quit, right, because they took a stand against something. And so they convinced me to stay, and I did, and I think I stayed for another 8 months or a year, and I finally left. And when I left, I was working on the same floor as the president of California, Nevada for the bank in downtown San Francisco, and it was a floor where everybody worked late and came in early. So I literally went in at 2 a.m, cleaned out my office, and put a note under my boss's door, and just drove away. Because I didn't want to have the conversation. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to be convinced to stay. I didn't want to be told that, hey, you're the kind of employee we want working here. I wanted nothing to do with it anymore. And
that is gangster.
Pardon me?
Gangster.
Yeah, back then it was a Ford Motor Company was doing a commercial that they said, bold move. And as I say that, I was driving away from downtown San Francisco in my 4Runner, stuffed with my money tree and inspirational pictures, and that's what went through my head. Bold move, right? I knew there was no turning back from that, but I didn't want to go back. I wanted to break it clean where I had no option other than to move forward, because moving forward was so hard, because I was going to disappoint my wife. I was going to disappoint my mother. I was going to disappoint myself on many levels. Right. I was gonna feel like I was a quitter and I was a failure, and I had to figure out how to work through that where I had no option. And and so I did. And I will tell you that when we talk about individuation, some of the last things my ex-wife said to me while she was still my wife was, you know what, status is important to me and you can't give it to me anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, individuation, it's a kick. Here's the thing. If you know what it's all about and you're going through it, it's hard, but you can drive it and you can kind of, go along with the ride. If you have no idea what individuation is and it just happens to be thrust upon you, you're going to be the white knuckle passenger holding on for dear life. So it's better to understand a little bit about it and really kind of get in touch with what's important to you.
And take the wheel.
Hearing what your ex-wife said broke my heart. Like through thick or thin, till death do us part. Nah, you're not making enough money.
Yeah. Well, I'll do you one better than that. It broke the relationship with my mother, which she was willing to put back together, but I had to go back to being the son that she wanted, not the son that I determined I was. But we would still communicate via text messages, happy birthday, Merry Christmas, that kind of stuff. And I text her message happy birthday a few years ago, and I didn't hear anything back for about a month or so. And I got a text message on her phone written in her voice, basically saying, I've passed away, so you can just stop texting. And it was written by her husband.
Oh, dude, I'm sorry.
But you know what? This is what that's what it takes, right? I mean, not everybody wants to accept you for who you are.
True.
Yeah.
But if you don't accept yourself for who you are, nobody else will. And once you do, you can start bringing the people who are supposed to be in your life closer.
Well, and I must admit that my ex-wife did me a great favor, maybe one of the best favors anybody's done me in my life. We got separated. She did not want me to be a comedian. And then we got back together and separated, and we're thinking about getting back together. And I said, look, I won't be a full-time comic. I'll just do open mic nights and do some paid gigs around here. And she looked at me and she goes, you know what? You wanted to be a comic since you were in the 4th grade. You're lying to me and you're lying to you. I'm going to move in with my folks in Seattle. I'll give you a little. We were living in San Diego. I'll give you a little geography between us so you can pursue this. And then the second best favor, she goes, but I've seen your act. You don't have what it takes. So she cut me loose, forced me loose, favorite one, and you don't have what it takes drove me for decades. You know, the I'll show you attitude.
Mm-hmm.
So too big. I wouldn't even admit to myself that's what I want to do. She's the one that had to go, no, you're lying to me. You're lying to you. You are a comedian. That's what you need to do.
And you know, Frank, that just goes back to the fact that, you know, some of the people who we need to break away from are doing us the biggest favors.
Yeah.
You know what, Frank? I so relate to that story. I didn't have my midlife crisis with stand-up until people started believing in me. Like that belief that, oh, you don't have what it takes propelled me to go on a national tour. But once people started recognizing I had talent, that's when everything imploded. That's when it's like I can't do it anymore.
And guys, I just want to give you a shout out to the fact that you both went through that journey, because being a comedian, boy, I tell you, you're really putting yourself out there and exposing yourself to, you know, ridicule and all this fun stuff. And when you break through it and you know, really get into your own light, what a fantastic journey that is. I've always loved comedy. I've thought about it many times. I taught comedy traffic school. That's the closest I ever came.
Yeah.
I'm probably not meant to be a comedian, but I love the idea of it. I love what you guys do. I wish I could do, because, you know, as a public speaker, getting up on stage and telling a story, that's one thing. Being a public speaker, getting up on stage and trying to, you know, your goal is to make people laugh. You know what? I just don't think I could ever do it. But, you know, kudos to you guys who have gone through that journey and bring the humor and the smiles to the world that you do.
Well, thank you. And it was such a pleasure to have you on, Anthony. Can I call you Ant?
Pardon me?
Can I call you Ant?
Ant?
Yeah. On the East Coast from Brooklyn, like all people go, hey, Ant, come here.
Yeah, my sister used to call me Ant, and then some people I worked with call me Antony. Antony. So yes, you may.
Very East Coast.
Yeah.
All right. It was great having you on here, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I think
we got one more post from Noah Whitaker. Your conversation resonates a lot with me at the moment, as I just turned 40 and am thinking a lot about who I am, what my goals are, etc. You may have a new client.
well,
I'm happy to have a call with no charge. Let's talk about it, because, man, you know, and that's the thing. When you finally get to that point, it's not like you have a whole bunch of people you can pick up the phone and talk to about this, right? Friends, family, they don't get it.
Yeah, that's why I think the TEDx idea has legs. I think because so many people have gone through it.
Mm-hmm.
Blindly. I imagine a lot of them just sort of blundering along, and so many people are in that position where they just feel like they're living the wrong life, and this is really not who I am. But how do I A, determine if that is the case, and B, then what? So that's where the next life coach comes in.
Yep, the next life, Frank King. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
There you go. All right, everybody, take care.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I'm ending the broadcast. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.